We are now recording.
So welcome everybody. This is actually the final episode of our current series of OTF Connects. What works for me might work for you. And I am absolutely thrilled to welcome you to Making Math Moments from a Distance. And we have two awesome presenters with us today, Kyle Pearce and John Orr. I told Kyle that I have lots of jokes that I can tell about him, but maybe I'll save them till later because I don't really have a balance of jokes to tell about John. You may read into that whatever you wish. Before handing over to them and letting you know a little bit more about them, I just wanted to acknowledge that we are gathered in the territories of various indigenous peoples and that we further recognize their stewardship of these lands in which we live, learn, work, and play. So we are in for a great treat today with Kyle and John. I am going to read a bit about them and then I can put their bios into the chat box so that you have those. Really fascinating. I have known Kyle Pearce for a long time. I'm not going to say how many years now, Kyle, but Kyle is the K-12 mathematics consultant with the Greater Essex County District School Board, where his passion for mathematics fuels him to uncover creative ways to spark curiosity and fuel sense-making through the inquiry process, using tasks that are contextual, visual, and concrete. An Apple Distinguished Educator and Google Certified Innovator. That just means he's one of the cool kids. Kyle shares his most recent noticings, wonderings, and reflections in mathematics, pedagogy, and effective uses of technology by delivering workshops across North America and blogging on tapintoteamofminds.com. Kyle lives in Belle River. I know, it is really impressive. Kyle lives in Belle River, Ontario, Canada with his wife, daughter, and son. And let me just say that I was once out at MIT and I just mentioned Kyle's first name. And the professor that I was talking with said, "Are you talking about Kyle Pearce?"
No.
So that's when I knew that Kyle is seriously well known across the world.
I pay Lindy well, pay her well.
John, I think that John has tremendous courage because he's been working with Kyle for a very long time. And he's a high school math teacher at John McGregor Secondary School in the Lambton, Kent District School Board in Ontario. When not teaching his students and spending time with his family, he leads workshops and presentations on teaching pedagogy in the math classroom. As an Apple Distinguished Educator and Desmos Fellow, another very cool kid. If you see those words together, you know that we're talking about super cool people. John routinely talks about implementing technology and great teaching strategies in his classroom. Lately, he's been excited about promoting struggle in his students and teaching them about resilience while problem solving. John lives in Tilbury, Canada with his wife and his 3 beautiful daughters. And at this point, I can actually stop sharing and hand over to the two of you. I will put those bios into the chat in a moment.
Wow. Thank you so much, Lindy. And it is an honor for us to be here with OTF and presenting. So we want to thank OTF for, setting this up and inviting us on. So it's also an honor to be the last one. You know, it feels pretty cool to be the last one. So we're going to get going here. We've got a couple housekeeping things we want to help you with. We'll get started with that. One is Kyle's showing you on the screen right now a workbook that we have put together for this session. Now, if you're a workbook kind of person, you might want to go to that link right there. It will download as a PDF and you can print that out or put that in your, your tablet if you want, if that's where you're going. You can reference some of the notes now or later. So that's one of the things that we're going to start with. Kyle, we're going to do a couple housekeeping with Zoom here. If this is your first Zoom session, then there's a couple things that we use because we're running a webinar, which is a little different than a meeting. We've got a couple features for the Zoom lovers out here. We're going to use the chat feature. So some of us are already in the chat. Say, let us know where you are, where you're from, what you're teaching. We're going to, all your comments, all your kind of sharing goes into the chat, just like a meeting. But what is different than a meeting is in this webinar, we have a Q&A section. So in the Q&A box, if you have specific questions you want us to answer, then at the end of the session, we will get in there and address those Q&As for a little bit of time. So those are where they're kind of like you're wondering about this and you would like an answer to that. So we'll address those. We try to put them in the Q&A and not in the chat, because the chat will kind of fly through as we're going. Kyle, am I missing anything before we get going? I think we got a prize to give away too, don't we?
Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. We do have a prize. We want to make sure that somebody walks away with something really cool at the end of the session. We're going to make sure everybody walks away with some pretty cool stuff, including some places you can go to grab some cheat sheets from today. You saw the workbook there. Maybe John can re-put that into the chat box, makemathmoments.com/workbook. That'll get it for you. And it might help you sort of, solidify some of your learning along the way. At the end, we'll take care of this giveaway. But before we begin, we're going to start here with just something like, I don't know about you, but when we first started this distance learning thing, John and I sort of felt like like this little guy right here, right? Bang, right there. That girl is distance learning.
Yeah.
And that poor little guy is every single one of us.
Distance learning takes no prisoners. It's like, just like her. She's like, I don't even, this little guy, I don't take prisoners. I'm going to, distance learning is doing that to us. And I think give us a, oh yeah, or a yes, if you're feeling like it's just getting us, like it hurt, to have this, and put us in this position, like we're in this position and we don't know how it's going to go. Like we still are up in the air on what it's going to look like for us next year.
Yep.
And so we are super glad that you were here, because we're trying to work this out. And that's what we want to do here today is to talk about what we can do to help make math moments for our students from a distance, because I have a feeling that even if we're just about ending this year, going to be doing some form of this come September.
Yeah, no, and I know there are some people, we saw some people, for example, Gerald in the room. I know we've done some learning before. Some people, though, are new in this room. So we want to make sure that we're clear, because even in a face-to-face environment, we are in a bit of a tough situation, because if we pretend that all these dots on the screen are our students, there's only 10 there. So let's, might have to triple that if we're talking about an actual
or even
classroom. Or more, and hopefully it's not going up, but hopefully going down over time. But we've got these students here, and oftentimes when John and I first started teaching, and for many years, we sort of had this mindset that, students were going to arrive into my classroom. If I was teaching grade 9, I was expecting that kids would all come to me with all of that prior knowledge from grade 8. And I was going to take them all to this new place, this new knowledge and understanding. But unfortunately, that didn't actually happen. And I'm sure it didn't happen for you either. If it did happen, then boy, oh boy, do I want to go check out your classroom. Because for me, it felt a little bit more like this. And maybe you can relate. Some students are coming with whatever that current knowledge and understanding are. Some students are at very different places, and it would be great if it was linear, but the reality is learning doesn't happen in a linear fashion. There are some trends we can follow, but the reality is many students, especially with math learning, kind of take different routes and go and move along at different speeds. So if this is how students are learning in our math classroom, we have to be aware of that as we design and develop and craft our lessons. So today what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to find ways that we can do our best to help meet every learner where they are. And we're not going to tell you, it's not easy to do it online. It's hard to do face-to-face, but we're going to try to give you some strategies, some tools that you can use to help along the way. So what we're going to do is just frame out what we're actually hoping to help you with today. So John, what's the first thing that we're going to actually help people walk away with?
Yeah, so it's up on the screen. So we want to help. So we also want to put these up front is because we want you to hold us accountable to these things as we go for the next 45 minutes to an hour on this is we want to make sure by the end of that we can help you deliver math curriculum through problem-based lessons. So we thinking about the way that some of us have taught, like I was taught for a number of years. I've moved into a problem-based lesson approach. We want to show you how you can do that in math on a regular basis. Kyle, what else are we going to help them with today.
Yeah, and kind of going back to that visual we just explored, we want to find ways to reach all students regardless of their mathematical readiness. I'm sure everyone in the room, as we got thrown into this remote learning situation, we were probably scrambling to try to provide something for students to do. And oftentimes, it might be in the form of something like a handout or even like a digital tool, but those are very hard things to adapt to be able to reach all students. That's where we come in. The educator comes in to help. So we're going to talk about that regardless of their mathematical readiness. And we're going to do so through emerging math strategies and models. Yeah. And then finally, the last thing, John, what's that we're going to do?
Yeah, so this is probably why most of you are here too, is that we're going to show you how you can do this synchronously, but also asynchronously, how you can carry out lessons like this over the internet. Kyle and I have used a number of lessons with our own teachers for Kyle and students for me. We want to show you what we've been doing so that you could do this either next week or tomorrow or next year. So let's, over the internet, that's what we're looking for here today.
Awesome, awesome stuff. So if you don't already know the guy that was just speaking, that is John. I know that Lindy introduced him earlier. Awesome stuff going on there. I met John through collaborating over the internet, and he had been blogging on mror-isageek.com. Go check that out. Awesome stuff that he's got going. And if you're unaware, Math Before Bed is a project that John put together as a way to bring math conversations to bedtime routines. So he's got great prompts over there. Make sure to go and have a look at those.
Thank you, Kyle. And so Kyle also has, he's got 2 websites we want you to check out that if you haven't yet already, you are missing out. Kyle's been writing all his lesson plans, all his resources. He's been making 3-act math video problems for years. They are all housed over on tapintoTeenMinds.com. Great resources to get you set up there. Also, he's, as a K-12 math consultant, he's been doing a lot of learning about, and deep learning about number sense and elementary school mathematics, but he's built a great resource to help teachers and also parents and students understand how you could learn abstract math concepts, but in a visual way. He's got a lot of animations over there that you can use in your classroom or students can use at mathisvisual.com. So check that out as a resource moving forward. And if you we are the co-hosts of a podcast, which is like a talk show on the internet that's recorded, Making Math Moments That Matter. Maybe some of our attendees here today have listened to the episode episodes, because we've had, I think this week was episode 81 that we released. Ooh. So if you've listened to an episode, you can listen to them online, or you can get your podcast app, depending on whatever phone you have. You can listen to it right from your phone. So give us a hey, yeah, I've listened in the chat if you have. Otherwise, you can check that out on any podcast listening device, or you can head to makemathmoments.com and click podcast, or makemathmoments.com/podcast. So check that out. We've been doing a lot of learning as hosts of that show along the way. It's been over a year we've been doing that. So lots there to check out to further your professional development. But Kyle and I have also learned a lot. Kyle, let's get into what we want to talk about here today and get into problem-based lessons.
Yeah, we are really going to be sharing with you. And for those who have been with us for some time or have participated in some learning, you'll know that we are super eager to try to find ways to engage students in awesome math learning. The problem is, though, is that for many years, we were developing these lessons. We were focusing on curiosity and getting them going. But the problem was, like, one day it went really well, and then another day, not so well. And we call those like the lesson flops. Like, are we going to have a lesson that flies, or are we going to have a lesson that flops? And if you have ever had a lesson flop, type in the chat flop. Go ahead and get that. Tell us. And you gotta be humble here, because yeah, we're saying, there you go. Stephanie says it. Everybody, if you are not going to admit you've ever had a lesson flop, then you probably haven't.
I just put it in there too.
Yeah, you did it too. Good job, John. And what we realized over time is we're like, well, what's going on here? Like, I remember these conversations early on with you, John, and we were brainstorming, and we were saying, like, what about this lesson, we'd reflect on a lesson, went so well, and what about this lesson went so wrong? And what we realized is that we needed to find ways to leverage the power of moments in math class. And what we realized as well, and we knew at the time, we had a belief, but now we know it to be true. But at the time we had a belief that it wasn't just luck, right? And we can actually create these moments. So what we try to do is take all the things that we had learned. John and I always say, like, a lot of the things we do, they're not things that we created. All right, we're going to share a framework that we put together, but it's based on research. It's based on great people from around the world who have shared all kinds of amazing things on how to teach engaging lessons, on how to teach lessons that teach students to be resilient problem solvers. And we said, we've got to put this into something that's digestible, right? Teachers are so busy. There's so much pressure, the things that we have to do day in and day out. We need to make this something that we can help them do so that it becomes a habit, it becomes routine. And that's what we landed on. We landed on 3 different things. John, what was one of the things that helped us organize our thinking here?
And I'm just going to build off what you said there, Kyle, in the sense that not only it's like this pressure to like do this, but you know, these things that we're pulling from many different areas. And sometimes it's overwhelming to see all these resources out there. And you're like, how does this fit into my lessons? Like, how do I make this work on a regular basis? And that's what we've been trying to do with the framework. So this framework, you know, it's three things. They're not, we don't want to say there's like 3 steps, because it's not. It's 3 things we think about and keep in mind when we're planning lessons or planning units or planning courses. So the first of the 3 things is called sparking curiosity, which represents so many different things, but it's the idea that we need to hook our students into math. We need to engage them. We need to make them feel comfortable. We need to make them feel like that room is for them and they can see themselves as mathematicians in the classroom. Their identity is associated with the work that we do in the room. But so sparking curiosity is about, you know, building on students' curious nature so that we can then fuel sense making. And that's something that is the second piece of the framework. We spent so much time, like Kyle said early on, with building and curiosity in our students. Like, we focus so much on engagement. That was a buzzword forever. It's like, we got to get our students engaged. But once your students engaged, are you actually helping them understand math at a deeper level? Are we helping them see connections in math? And that's where we for a long time, we missed the boat. We were like, we got them engaged, but now I just resort back to all my teaching strategies.
And I also think too, John, like something else that we sort of realized over time was like, we were taking curiosity and we were doing things over here. And then we were like, now we have to teach the math over here. And they were like disconnected. Yeah. They were separate, you know? So I hear some people say this, they're like, tomorrow we're going to do a fun task. We'll do a fun task.
Fun Friday.
But today we got to do all of like the math.
Yeah.
And
we got to get ready.
We got to get ready for it. We got to make sure we pre-teach it. We don't want that. We want this to be something that is connected so that the work we do sparking curiosity is actually fueling that sense making. So the sense making is coming from that. And the only way we can do this, and this part is so important for the flopping or flying those lessons, is making sure that we're paying attention to our teacher moves. And we like to call this igniting our teacher moves. We want to be thinking about what's happening before, during, and after our lessons, including where are students coming from? Where are they at now? What kind of diagnostic or formative assessment am I doing while they're problem solving in order to help me figure out what are my next steps? Am I going to pivot my plan or am I going to proceed as planned? So in a nutshell, this framework is what we're going to be building off of today, but we're also going to do this in a synchronous fashion. We'll also reference some of the ways that you can do this asynchronously as well. So today we have you synchronously, but we want you to keep your mind open because there's ways that you can use these tools and these ideas in order to lead a fully synchronous lesson, a fully asynchronous lesson, or maybe it's even a little bit of both, depending on your learners and depending on your situation. So we're going to get started here. And John, I think we're going to get started by actually sparking some curiosity. So can you, like, as I get the screen set up,
you
can
get
you
it ready.
frame how we're going to do this?
Yeah. So like what Kyle was saying is one of the best ways that you can, learn and participate is actually to immerse yourself in this environment. So what we like to do in all of our sessions, whether we're online for webinars like this one, or whether we're in person, if we ever get back to in-person workshops, we like to put our participants like you through a lesson that we've done with our students, and show you how it looks from start to end as it would in your classroom. And so you have to do two things. One, you have to wear two hats. That's the two things. Is one hat is you're a student in our classroom, experiencing how this would be. The second hat that you're going to wear is your teacher hat, because what you want to do also is watch and see what we're doing and try to go, can I replicate that? Or can I do that in my classroom? Or if it was in my classroom, I'd change it to like this. Or is that they showed me a tool, maybe I'll jot that tool down. So it's about being the student in the classroom to feel what it's like to go through a problem-based lesson like we're going to show you. And we're going to do it over the internet synchronously. But then, like Kyle said, we're going to take time to show you or explain how we can do this asynchronously. And we got some tips, some resources that we've been using, and other people have also been using them with their classrooms too. So what we're going to do to start off is we're actually going to get you to do some noticing and wondering. So what we'd like to do is, in a classroom, we jot these things down on a paper or on a whiteboard or on the chalkboard individually, like a think, pair, share. While we're doing this synchronously here with you, though, we're going to use the chat feature. And that's, if you're doing this with students in your classroom, you're going to have them also do it in the chat feature. Is get them to type in anything they notice and anything they wonder. And this is going to be great because we know we know that you've already been doing this, and probably getting some engagement from students is a little bit different than from your classroom. And we have to recreate that culture. So we're going to start like this in September, or who knows what it looks like in September. We have to build the culture that voice is important from our students, that it's not just the teacher's going to do all the teaching and all of the standing up in front of everyone. We're going to value voice from our students. That will change your classroom culture, no matter what grade level you teach. So what we're going to do is have you notice and wonder from a video that Kyle's going to show here. And all we need you to do is type in anything you notice and anything you wonder in the chat. And then we're going to take it from there. Go ahead, Kyle.
Awesome stuff. And I also want to let you know, we're actually going to run this right from the web. And, we normally would do this from a slide deck if we're teaching in the classroom, but we want to just share with you that you can have a synchronous experience and run these things right from the web. Right here, we're going to be using a task off of our website, makemathmoments.com/tasks. And it's actually a unit, and it's wide open. You can go and check this thing out. The only thing that you would need a teacher account for is just for the teacher guide and all of the courses that we build around some of these tasks. So really, this task is ready for you to use tomorrow in your class with your students. So I'm going to go ahead and play the first question for students here. It's what do you notice? What do you wonder? I'm going to give it a go. And we're going to ask you in the chat, share anything and everything you notice and anything and everything you wonder. Let's see it here. Good noticing coming in here.
Ooh, I see some questions.
How heavy?
Some wonders. He's rubbing his neck a lot. Nice one.
Just says from Poland. How far can he throw? Twist and throw. All kinds of things going on there. We're going to let those flow in here. And see what you're thinking. I'm going to show this image as well. And you'll see on the website, like you'll have full control of this and to run this task right from here, like with nothing else for you to do other than to do those teacher moves and think ahead of what you're going to do with this task. So here's that image. We're letting those roll in. Do you see any more coming in there, John?
Now, there's lots of questions about the shot put, how heavy it is, how long are the lines, how do we measure that? Did he win? Did he, how far did it go? What's his personal best? There's lots of messages coming in here, and if we're running this synchronously, so we're putting our teacher hats on right now. If we're running this synchronously, what we're going to recommend to do is highlight, just like we're doing, right? You're going to read them out loud, read the kids' names, make them feel that warmth, make them feel like they are participating in the sense that it was valued and their voice is being heard. So we're going to, if we were in the classroom, what Kyle and I regularly do is write these on the blackboard or the whiteboard and put kids' names underneath them. And that kind of gives them that validation that they're looking for. Also, the nice part about this is that we're easing into math. And actually, as a student right now, you don't know where we're going. Kyle and I have done some pre-work here that we'll talk about after, about where we would go and where we're going to go. But we have a definite plan here. Sometimes there's I'm actually missing the word right now, but there's this idea that we're just gonna go where the kids go, like depending on all your things. But no, we have a very specific plan here of attack for this problem. So definitely in a synchronous environment, we are talking about this. We'll show you what we do with an asynchronous environment afterwards.
Yeah. And, as you'll see up on the screen, I'm going to share the prompt that we're going to land on. So again, after value, we got to value student voice. We need to celebrate what they're sharing, not only limiting it to mathematical noticing and wondering. It's anything and everything goes. Everyone in our community is welcome here. And I'm going to share an image here. It's like an overhead image of that throw. And we're just going to get you right in the chat right now. We're going to have you throw in like any of your estimates. Like you might be really, really familiar with shot put. Maybe it's like your favorite sport, and you might have like a pretty, like what you believe to be a pretty decent approximation of what this throw length could be. But you could also be someone on the other end saying like, I actually have no idea. I have no idea what like a normal average throw would be. I don't know what an Olympic throw would be. So right now it's just about getting numbers out there and letting people share what they're thinking. Do you see any coming in here, John?
Yeah,
it's hard for me.
I'm going to read some out loud here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to try to model some of these estimates here. But here's something interesting, Kyle, and I love this talking point right now. And this probably happens more so because we're adults, and but probably from students you might get more consistency. But right now I'm seeing like estimates being 6 meters to 600 meters. I got 20 meters, but I also have 35 yards, and then I have 60 feet, and then 63 meters, or 300 feet. And so it's like I want to put all these on a number line. You know what? That's what we like to do with estimates. And if I had to put them all in a number line to show where the range of possibility happens, and this is one of the benefits of estimating. And actually, in our classrooms, we train our kids to talk about 3 numbers, and when we estimate, not just one number. We talk about estimating 3 numbers. So we're actually going to change this a little bit in 2 ways. One is we're going to ask you to estimate 3 numbers, but don't write any yet. One of those numbers being like a too high. One of those numbers being a too low. These are wrong guesses. This gives kids the idea that I can be wrong, and that's okay. It's like, I love that kids will shout out the wrong answer. It's easier to shout out a wrong answer than the right answer, and it opens the door to thinking about what the right answer could be. And so a too low and a too high, frame it in. And then we're going to have a very, give me your best guess after that. But we're still this is the second thing, we're still kind of all over the map. And if I put this on a number line to show the too high and the too low, 300 feet is different than 300 meters. So we got Kyle, what can we do here? We got to standardize this
I'm
somehow.
thinking, we're going to have to standardize it somehow. And like, we could go down the list and we could pick what the students want. Like, for example, I'm loving Dave. Like, Dave is saying 3 giraffes lying down, 3 giraffe lengths. Like, so you could do that. You can pick, or you can let the kids pick, because the beauty is like, as long as we're on the same page with the unit, and it's really cool using a non-standard unit like giraffe lengths, right? So you can see here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to standardize this a little bit, but we're going to do it a little bit differently today. We're going to set the stage. We're going to set the context for students that actually the official has a measuring stick. Now, this isn't typical. Like, it's not like a rule. Like, if you've never seen shot put, you're like, oh, I didn't realize that's how they measure it. They actually don't. This is like, we're saying in this scenario, we're using measuring sticks. And actually that measuring stick up on the screen is what this official is going to use to determine the length. But here's the deal. It's not like a meter stick. Maybe it is, but we don't know this. You can make an assumption if you'd like, but what we're really interested in right now is for you to now try to narrow down your approximation, your estimate in sticks. So we're looking at this brown measuring stick. We're going to get you to throw those down in the chat right now. And I wonder, John, like, I'm going to make a guess and say that I bet you that our range that was like really wide with all kinds of different units is going to suddenly become much more
and it's going to be, it's going to be much more consistent. I want to show that consistency right now on the screen. So we got some estimates coming in and I want to plot some of these. So I'm going to share my screen. Kyle, just give me a thumbs up that if you see the correct screen right here. Okay. So I'm using actually Braining Camp right now, and Kyle's going to throw that link in the chat. Braining Camp is a manipulative online manipulative website, and they've got lots of different things. And one of them is a number line. And right now I'm showing my number line from 0 to 100. Kyle, did you see any sticks that were close to 100? Because I can adjust this number line.
I didn't. I think the highest so far I see is 25 sticks.
All right. So,
I don't know too, and we're going to ask you in the chat right now. You can tell your students and you can have them share all three, the low, the high, and the mid. But right now, just because of time, and we're going to be covering a lot of ground today from a pedagogical perspective and a content knowledge perspective, I'm going to have you share your best guess right now in the chat. I see a lot of 8s, John, and I see some 6s.
So we got, like, I can put a couple 2 highs in here. So I'm gonna grab a couple. Kyle, tell me a 2 high that you're seeing right now, because I love seeing 2 highs because if we're all saying it's about high, it's lower than this high number, then you can see that framework a little bit better. Go ahead and give me a 2 high, Kyle.
Joanne's saying like she's got her low is 1 stick.
1 stick.
And her high is 20 sticks.
All right, I'm going to put this at 20 sticks. This is a 2 high. And so it's like I could even label these right now. Where is my labeling? Where'd it go? Oh, here it is right here. I could say 2 high up here. All right, Kyle, what I'd like you to do now is, this one's 2 high. I'll do it 2 low, but I want you to start looking for some of their best guesses. And what we'll do is we'll start to frame in some of these best guesses. Give me a best guess, Kyle.
Yeah, I see lots of 5.5s.
Okay, 5. I'm gonna go 5, and we're gonna go 6 because we're gonna get some of those. Give me another one, Kyle.
I got a lot of 7s. Lots of 7s and 8s.
All right, and 8s. All right, we're getting those in here. And Kyle, give me a name of a do you see any 10s, Kyle?
Yeah, I saw Joya says 10 actually just a moment ago.
So give me that.
Joya.
Joya. Beautiful. So it's like I can even name these, these guesses. And this is something that we've done in class too, is when we do estimates in real time with our students, is that we write their names under their estimates on the blackboard or the whiteboards. But Braining Camp, now, if you're doing this synchronously, just like we are, like you're seeing me do it synchronously, like you can mimic this in your class for any estimate on any problem, and get this kind of this conversation going between what's too high, what's too low, get that estimate out there. And then you can take even a screenshot of this. If you're doing this asynchronously, you could build this from estimates and then show it back to students later on. So there's a couple tips here. So Kyle, we're looking at, there's not too many close to our 2 high. We're hovering around 7, 6, 5. You could even, you could use the labels to say how many there are on, say, 7, or how many there are on 6 or 5. Kyle, let's turn it back to you, and let's see how close people are with their actual guesses here.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's pop right over here, and just a thumbs up there, John.
Yep,
you can see.
We're good.
Awesome. So I'm going to shut down this image 2 here, and we're going to move on to this next image. And we're actually going to give you a little bit of information. I'm actually going to tell you that there are 6 measuring sticks. You'll see here 6 measuring sticks in total, but we didn't make it all the way to the shot put ball.
All these people are like, you tricked me. It's not exactly 6 and a some, 6 and a little bit.
6 and a some. I will say 6 and some. And here's what we're actually going to have you do. But before I share it, you can see I'm like, I want to share it. We're going to get to why I'm not going to share it yet. I'm actually going to have you use a tool here in just a moment. I want to frame the tool first before you rush to trying to solve what we're about to give you here, the productive struggle. I'm actually going to use Knowledge Hook. For those, all of us are from Ontario, so you may or may not have heard of Knowledge Hook. They're from Ontario, which
Waterloo
is great.
area.
Waterloo area. Yeah, we're going to use a tool that is totally free, and it's actually called Snapshots. So I'm going to go ahead and click Snapshots. And I'm going to start a brand new session. I'm going to turn registration off because I'm not going to make you register. And I'm going to let you, as guests, stay on. So
to turn registration back on there, Kyle, just as a heads up.
This is kind of weird. I don't know why that's happening. Oh, there we go. Registration on, off, on.
If
weird. That didn't happen last time.
Maybe,
Guests on.
I guess you're going to have to leave it on.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Yeah. Well,
let students. You might not have to create an account.
You know what? Let's just do that. Let's just see what happens. You might have to create a little login. No big deal. But what we're going to have you do is we're actually going to have you head to this link here, joincage.com. John's going to put this in the chat right now. And when you arrive at your destination, it's going to ask you for a course code. And you're going to type in SIP 2234. And the intent of this tool, the Snapshots tool, what it's going to allow you to do, it's going to have only one thing on your screen once you're logged in here. It's going to say, take a photo of my work. So if you have a device with you, like a portable device, a mobile device, I think we call them nowadays, not a portable one, a mobile device, you can actually log in on your browser on your device. And we're going to be utilizing the camera in order for you to be able to submit your math work so we can share and actually try to make some connections. So we're going to have you do this. Now, think back to what John said earlier. He said, you're wearing two hats right now. You're wearing your teacher hat, thinking like, okay, how can I do this in my own class? But right now, I want you to specifically pretend that you are the student. And I want you to even try to dig even deeper and say, like, not that student that comes into your class and is like, able to do things and maybe even knows all the procedures ahead of time or anything like that. I'm talking about a student who may not have all of the same tools in their back pocket. How might a student solve this problem? And I want you to try your best to struggle through it. And when you're ready, you can take a photo with your phone through this particular tool right here.
So when you're ready, so Kyle's going to show you the problem. He's going to go and put it back up again. And then when you're ready, because we're going to give you some time to work on it, you're going to click that button and it's going to access your camera. And then you can take a picture of it and it will snap to Kyle. This is great because most of, you're used to seeing your students work. And if you're doing this in a synchronous environment, holding the paper up to the camera, that doesn't work well. That it's all of a sudden the camera can't focus. And if 20 kids are doing that at the same time, it's a nightmare. But what this is going to do is it's going to allow Kyle to see all the different solutions the kids are going to make on this problem. And he can then, sort them or present the ones that he wants to present. So we want to try this here with you. We've been successfully using this with our kids. So I guess you got to put the problem. Did you put the problem back up, Kyle?
I'm about to do it right now. So hopefully everyone's got that. I'm going to leave this information on the screen as well.
There you go.
You now see 6 measuring sticks, but the official had to pace out an additional 8 feet to get to the ball or to the shot put. And I'm actually going to let you know that each stick has a length of 11 feet. Now, you're thinking like a student. I want you to remember, I have not pre-taught you what's happening here. We're just curious to know, how far did he throw? So how far did this shot put go based on what we see? We're going to give you a little bit of time. Take some time there, and hopefully we'll see some of these starting to pop up on the screen here.
Do you, okay. Yeah, leave that up there.
Yeah, I'm going to,
Here we go.
some are coming up. Some are coming up. I'm going to leave this here just for a moment, just for people to grab this down. And maybe even John, you can even type in some of these details into the chat if you'd like. And I'm going to pop in here and see, as you can see here, this tool, I'm going to approve Andrea C, who requested a password reset. I'm approving it. Go ahead there. You can log in now. Awesome stuff. So we're seeing, look at all these solutions coming in, and you can see this tool right now, super slick, super quick. And I can start pulling these up. And as you're pulling them up, I could have you working. I'm showing you my screen right now, but I could stop sharing my screen, start looking at these to try to start selecting and sequencing the student work that's coming in. So for example, if it's very symbolic in nature, so very abstract, I might put this solution off and try to find a more visual solution first. So I might go and say, do I see any visual or concrete solutions? Because for some students, looking at this, they might say, okay, I see there's some numbers multiplying and adding, but like, how does this work? I'm going to challenge somebody if like, do you have a solution that when you look at it, it just like feels right? I found it. I found one, John.
Let me see one that feels right. Is there a picture?
Yeah, I can feel it. I can feel it. Here it is. Look at this one, John. Why do you think I picked this one, John, to start our consolidation of this particular question here, or this connection period?
Why do I think they picked that one? I think it's using the model that we set up. You put a diagram up on the screen of the sticks and the length of the line, and then now this person has filled in the sticks to show how those sticks relate to the line in the linear model that you started off on.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And the closer we can stay to the visual that represents the context of the problem, the better off we have, or the better the chance we have of all students being able to make a connection and say like, oh, like even here, I might even push this student in my classroom to say, okay, can you be more convincing? I have to do a lot of the connection making myself. This might be enough for this student to solve the problem, and they may fully understand it, but now I'm going to push them and say, how can you convince me if I'm not sure why this works? And that's where we can start leveraging that concrete and those visual models. And in this case, like a linear model makes a ton of sense here. I'm going to pull Andrea's up. Like, check out Andrea's. Like, I'm looking at this and I see her visual. And to me, I feel like every student in the classroom will be able to see that, oh yeah, that's right. Every single measuring stick was 11 feet in length. There were 6 of them. So I'm adding 11 6 times and adding my remaining 8 feet. Or I'm taking 6 groups of 11 to get my 66 and adding 8. Now, John, I don't know about you. I'm looking up on the screen. I don't know how well you can see this here, but I didn't see any algebraic, and I'm not saying they didn't exist. It didn't exist at all, but this is a great opportunity. Look at this linear model there. What a cool linear model doing jumps of 11. This is a great tool for me to be able to take student thinking and start to leverage their strategies to build and consolidate the learning. So essentially what we're hoping to achieve here is to be able to make sure that everybody makes a connection. And in this case, you might not have realized it. It might seem like a simple problem, but by doing these jumps of 11, not only am I building a new math model for some students, but I'm also giving them an opportunity to start making a connection to algebra. That actually here, initially, we had 6 sticks of some unknown length, and we added 8 feet here. We can actually create an algebraic equation to represent this particular linear relationship. So there's so much math thinking here happening, but if we don't leverage it, then we kind of let it slip away. And that's
Right.
that fueling sense making
Yeah,
piece.
Kyle, I just wanted to throw in here, there's some people commenting in the chat about, their grade 2s would, show the adding. And so, their grade 4s or 5s or 6s might show the multiplying. And obviously you're referencing, maybe a grade 8, grade 9, grade 10 solution might be, students might just add, but you're getting at the showing how it can relate to algebra. What we love is that progression. If you're using this tool and your kids are going to go that, show that solution, then you can use this problem here to do that. If you're going to be using this algebra, eventually you can use this problem to start, but the idea is to show the connections between multiplying and addition, or multiplying in algebra. So there's some really great features here, and that's what Kyle is saying about fueling sense making, is that often we just show kids how to solve problems without giving them a chance to showcase their understanding of the problem and what the solution can look like before you start to tie it to a particular learning goal. Because one of these learning goals for us, and the way I used this in my high school class, was to solve algebraic equations. And I love the fact that we can tie the multiplying into the algebraic equation and show it working backwards. And that connection has to happen. So, most—
And John, can I pause you there?
Yeah.
Just that algebraic connection. Like, look at this one here. I'm using the rotate tool, and I think we may have broke the internet because there's a lot of people in the room right now, but that's okay. Now it's upside down, but I hope you can see. And actually, let me just copy this image. I'm going to toss it right in.
I have to tilt my head like this.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Can you see it now?
No. Oh, yeah, I can.
There it is. When you were talking about the algebraic relationship, like imagine leveraging this student's work. This student's name is N, by the way. I love it. It's a unique name. It's very short, easy to remember. N here actually is showing it like an algebraic equation with the value of the unknown substituted in. Like how beautiful is that? How perfect is that if that's where you want to take the learning to next in your own classroom? So many cool things that we can do. And that tool really makes life so much easier. Now, what I want to do, I want to make sure that we actually share what happened. So we're going to go to the reveal and let's see how close we came. A lot of people were saying 74. I'm feeling good about 74. How are you feeling about 74, John?
I'm feeling good because I wanted to say something, but I got distracted because he's throwing and I'm going to see the answer, but yeah, 74 feet, right? We were estimating in sticks, we saw 6 sticks and then we used that to get 74 feet. So I'm liking that in a sense of how it fits into some of our estimates.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we've got an awesome opportunity here. We've definitely sparked curiosity. The beautiful part about this particular task is that we can keep going with it. Like we don't have to stop there. We can actually do some extending. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're actually, we're going to tell kids and we're going to frame this out and say that another thrower threw a shot put. And we could do the estimating. You might choose to skip this portion. We're going to do that today simply because of time. But you'll notice we have a different measuring stick here. And we can have kids actually engage in that estimate. We can give them some time to do that estimating. Today, we're going to skip over that. And we're going to jump straight to this particular task. And you're going to notice here that actually we're going to play with the given information a little bit. Like John, you and I are very similar. Like we like, kids are like feeling really good after that one. And they're like, okay, well, this is going to be easy. I just do the same thing. But this time we're actually going to throw a little bit of a wrench into it. Actually, I'm going to tell you that this took 4 red measuring sticks plus an additional 12 feet. And actually we already knew the length of the throw is 76 feet.
I love taking a problem and turning it on its head,
Absolutely. So the question we're going to ask you now to think about, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to like close down this particular room here. I'm going to end this session and start a new one. You can just refresh your screen and you're going to have the opportunity to start uploading here. But what we're going to have you do is actually try to think of like, how would a student solve this? We're going to give you a little bit of time to do that. And as we do, we're going to start kind of tying some loose ends as to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how you might do some of this stuff asynchronously and synchronously to make sure that you've got some ideas and some tools that you can take back into your own digital learning environment for the rest of this year and for who knows what we're up against in the fall when we return in September.
Yep. So just to reiterate, we're solving this and then we're taking our picture again to put it back in so we can see some of this thinking. Just get you a little bit more familiar with that tool. I'm sure Kyle's going to throw that up on the screen soon. There it is.
Check out some of these. And I love when I see this, like you can see some people that are going, okay, like I got this. I can see that there's a linear equation. Again, in my class, I might not start here. I might intentionally hold off so that we can see something a little more visual first and make sure every student is comfortable with how they got to an answer. John, what do you think about this one here?
Mm-hmm. I'm liking that one. I'm seeing the 64 feet. I love like that extra 12 feet comes off. And then we must have those sticks measuring 64 feet. And then I'm looking at how we get from there to the length of the measuring stick. I think we will need to like go a little bit more. So it's got the beginnings of solving equations for sure.
Exactly. So then you start thinking about strategies here and you're going, how can I take this? And then in my classroom, I go, actually, you know what? I can help take this student's work and like value this student's voice and say, you know, like once we get to this place where all of a sudden we're sitting and looking pretty good by like, if I go and I pull this up on the screen, like imagine this, I'm like, okay, well, this student clearly removed 12 from 76 feet. Would you agree, John? You saw that?
Mm-hmm, I saw that.
And left 64 feet over here. That's the same thing as like removing those 12 feet, those additional 12 steps that we see on the top of this number line or this linear model here. And now we're in a little bit of a pickle because you're like, 64 and there's 4 sticks. Some students might even say like, I know it's 64 divided by 4, but I don't want to do long division, right? I don't have this as a known fact. And I saw someone's image there had long division, and that's great if a student wants to do it. But imagine through mathematical modeling, we could help kids to see that, you know what? There's other ways. Like we don't have to solve for one stick right away. We could actually look at this and say, well, wait a second. If 64 is the length of 4 sticks, I wonder if I could do half of 64. I'm comfortable with that. Maybe a student might be comfortable with that. Like I'm comfortable with having my number of sticks and having my number of feet. And then from 32, maybe I'm okay with having 32 to help me get down all the way to a final answer of 16. This is just one possible method. And we often see kids using this when they're working with the visual, but when they're working with the abstract, they don't typically see some of these. You could call them tricks, but it's how mathematics works, this flexibility. And what they tend to do is they get stuck and they don't realize they start following procedures without understanding how they work. But here we can see that, wait a second, 4 measuring sticks I can have, and I can have the length of those 4 measuring sticks, and I can have again, and I have solved my equation probably in a way that we typically weren't taught in school. And honestly, I didn't really teach in my own classroom for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love the model you've put up in front here, is because showing that on the number line can help kids in you know, me right now, Kyle, seeing that having makes so much sense instead of just saying and training kids to just divide by the number in front of the R or the variable. Well, excuse me, be like, why did we do that? Like, why does it make sense? Because we're splitting it up, you know, and I think you've articulated that really nicely. Kyle, I think we're going to move to kind of talk about how we can show you some moves that we're making here synchronously, but also asynchronously. So we're all going to put our teachers' hats back on here and talk about some of the behind the scenes work that we've been doing here, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in general, like when we go back to sparking curiosity, a few things that we want to highlight for you. A lot of people are wondering like, where the heck do I go to actually spark curiosity? You'll notice in this task, like, let's talk about it a little bit. Like at the beginning of the lesson, there's a few things that are happening here. And if this was a longer webinar, we'd actually ask you to share this in the chat, because we think it's so important for you to be engaging in that and voicing your voice. But because of time, we want to keep this nice and tight. Here, what we were doing was we were actually withholding information. If you remember, we shared this video, but we didn't give you enough information. We actually were trying to build anticipation, and we did this in order to be able to ask that question of noticing and wondering. And then and only then does it make it worthwhile for a student to be able to start throwing out estimates. They've got like skin in the game here. They're curious. They're wondering what's going to go. And then as soon as they put an estimate down, now it's like, I want to see this through. I'm not going to give up on this, especially if I have the models, the math models and the visuals or the concrete that I can use and access this particular task. So John, my wonder is like, where do you go to find these tasks? Like, where can we find some so that I'm not making them from scratch?
Yeah. So it's like, if we want to teach from problem solving, how do I, I could Google these things, but we've made it a little bit simpler for you to do that. So there's a couple resources we want to share with you. One is at makemathmoments.com/tasks. We've shared that in the chat a few times now. These are tasks Kyle and I have created. This particular one has a 6-day progression. It takes you from solving equations like you saw all the way to solving systems of equations if you wanted to go that far. We love this like idea of progressing from start to end, so you can start it or stop it wherever your students are at. So hit that spot. There are a number, about 20 different tasks there you can find specifically. Otherwise, you can search makemathmoments.com/find, which is a search engine that searches not just our site, many sites from the internet. We've curated a number of great, reliable resources of teachers making problems like this that you can use in your classroom. So you're going to head there. That's what we go to search for new tasks that we want to hit topics with. The last thing you can do is you could transform your own. It takes a little bit more time. We've had some training on that, on how to build your own problem-based lessons from your textbook, and that training is in our academy, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. Kyle, I think we're going to then jump to the part 2, just for our timing reasons right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think in the cheat sheets, you're going to have all kinds of like different tools that you can access. So we'll talk about those at the end. Like, we'll give you kind of a brief overview, but there's like 3 big things in order to fuel sense making. There's 3 things that we got to be focusing on. You'll notice throughout that what we were trying to do with you is we were trying to craft a productive struggle. We were trying to put you in a scenario where you actually felt like you were the one doing the work. It wasn't the teacher pre-teaching it. We put you in a scenario so that you can encourage reasoning and proving. We don't want to just get an answer and be done with it. We actually want to take these ideas, these tasks that we're going to work so hard to craft with our students, and we want them to reason and prove with us. And then finally, we want to actually be able to keep them curious, and we do not want to rob their thinking. This is something that I still work on to this very day. We work on all of these things, but this one in particular, we don't want to rob them of their thinking. We don't want to tell them, yes, do it this way, or no, that's not going to work. We want to help ask the right questions and to give them that opportunity. So that's a very general idea there. And then when we go to igniting our next moves, we've got a few things going on there too, John.
Sure.
Take us there.
Yeah. So some of the things that we think about, these are, we call these the before moves, the during moves, and the after moves. These are things that we think about when we're planning the lesson. And that's where the igniting the moves come from. It's like, what do we have to do to get ready so that we can make the most of it? We use a quote from Tom Schimmer all the time. It says, proceed with, you have to plan with precision so you can proceed with flexibility. We can only in the moment, take a task and take the solutions we're seeing from our students and reorder them so that we can connect them together. You know, using the 5 practices for orchestrating productive mathematical discussions book. You know, you have to do a lot of planning up front to be able to be comfortable to do that in the time. So we talk about, you know, what are the before moves we have to do? You know, we have to do some anticipating. We have to think about what solutions kids are going to do. We have to think about how we're going to order them once we see those solutions. We have to think about the learning goal. What is the learning goal we want to solve or we want to bring out? For this particular lesson, our learning goal was to get to this algebraic solution of solving an equation, and we can use the students' understanding to, you know, build on their understanding to show how you could represent this algebraically. The during moves are also borrowed from the 5 practices, and we would select and sequence and monitor the students' work. And then the after, and we connect those things together. Those are the during moves. And then the after moves are like, what do we do once that's done? A lot of times for me as a high school teacher, I just move on to the next day, regardless of what I saw in the classroom. But the after moves for us lately are you know, with exit tickets or with other ways, since you've seen your students interact with this on a firsthand basis, instead of just presenting material to them, you're in a better position to say, are we ready to proceed with the next lesson, or do we need to pivot and re-talk about this before we move on? So those are some things that we definitely, you know, we talk about on a regular basis when we do our presentations, but lots of moves there that to consider when we're planning a lesson of this nature.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, we do have a bunch of resources for how you can actually facilitate these online. You saw one way to do it synchronously today, but those cheat sheets that we're going to share the links to, again, you can grab some ideas as well. John and I have been doing some pop-up webinars lately. So if you're curious, make sure that you go to the link that we're going to be sharing in just a couple minutes, and we'll keep you posted on that. But before we do, let's start wrapping this thing up, John. Let's make sure you need to participate in the chat right now. We need to know, do you feel like you had some takeaways today, like on how to deliver your math curriculum? You got to let us know in the chat. Hold us accountable. If you don't think so, you say no. Yeah, say yes if you think so, but if not, there we go. We've got a few coming in. All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Some people, Colleen's like, oh, that went too fast. Feeling like a lot. There's definitely a lot that we talked about, but we're going to give you some next steps. If you have some time over the summer, we're going to give you some next steps that you can dive deeper into these ideas as well. It's not an overnight process. John, how about the second one?
So yeah, with the second thing we wanted to make sure that you got, give us a yes in the chat if we did this one, because we do remember we said 3 things. The next one was how to reach students regardless of their mathematical readiness using strategies and models. We wanted to make that clear here to fuel sense making. Did we do that today? Give us a yes if that's true.
So let's see. Got quite a few. Again, a lot of people saying they need more.
And the last one, Kyle.
Here. And finally, let's see how to carry out engaging lessons over the internet. Hopefully you saw that this is possible. There are tools out there, and hopefully through the link we're going to share in just a moment, we'll give you some of those next steps, including where you can find more tasks and how you might be able to deliver these synchronously with your students, or to modify it and make them asynchronously. So what are we doing, John? We need we gotta pick a winner. We need one big takeaway from you, friends. If you share that in the chat, a big takeaway, you are going to get a year Academy license for the Make Math Moments Academy, where we have courses and walkthroughs, as well as a wonderful, vibrant community of educators who are just like you, trying to transform the way they're teaching mathematics in their class, both face-to-face and digitally.
It's a year's worth of PD. That's basically what we have there in the Academy, is lots of learning for you to do on making math moments for you and your students. So Kyle, why don't you pick the winner? So in order to win the year in the Academy, you're going to type in your biggest takeaway from this session, and Kyle's going to randomly scroll his chat, and he's going to point to one, and we're going to read that one out loud, and that one is the winner here today. So then we'll have you email us. I'm scrolling.
John, you tell me when to stop.
Stop.
There it is right there. It is Jody. Jody says, making the kids do the work instead of me modeling over and over. I've been there. I totally know that. That was how I taught for so long. I'm sure John relates as well. Yes, let's get the kids doing the thinking and we help them with the consolidating. Awesome stuff. Jody, we're going to have you head to that Distance Next link on the bottom of the screen.
Kyle, that's Kyle, the link we need to share is Distance OTF.
Oh,
That's
darn. I thought I changed that today.
I put it in the chat, everybody. So Distance OTF is the link that you're going to go to. I think if you go to Distance Next, it might just say the webinar is over. But if you go to Distance OTF, then you're going to see how to do a couple things. One is get those cheat sheets. Another one is if you want a certificate to print off, we got one of those there for you. And we've got some info about joining the Academy. The first 30 days are free. So anybody can actually join the Academy for free right now. You get your first 30 days. Jody's going to get a year though. So thank you and congrats there, Jody. And Kyle, I think that wraps it for us. And we're going to turn this back to Lindy. Woo-hoo. And again, thank you to OTF and for having us here for this session. We're 5 minutes over, Lindy.
Oh, she's going to be upset with us.
No, I'm not upset with you because I'm always so inspired when I listen to you, and I learn so much, and it really reminds me of all the things that are working in the background for us all to become fantastic teachers. So thank you so much, both of you. I am going to put in the chat box right now, it's like lots and lots of thank yous coming up. I'm going to just put a link, but we will be sending this link. It's just an evaluation link. If people want to do that right away, that's great. But I see the chat is scrolling so fast, you probably won't get it. We will also be sending a link to the recording as well as links to, I've been making notes of some of your main links, so we will make sure that those go out to everybody who had signed up to participate today. I see that you have 12 Q&As still sitting there in the Q&A. So I'm wondering if what we want to do is stop the official recording and then allow people who, and I want to respect people's time, but if people want to hang out and listen to those answers, if you still have a few minutes, then that's awesome. So how about we do that?
So Lindy, you would like to have me stop the recording, or do you want the Q&A in the recording for later?
Keep it in if you'd like. I just want people to feel like, you know, officially we're done.
Officially we're done.
Want to go, and if people want to stay and listen to the Q&A answers for the next, I don't know how long it will take to go through 12 Q&As, but I did look at them. There's some interesting questions. With
why don't we keep it rolling, and so then anyone seeing the replay can then also see the Q&A.
Perfect. That's a great idea.
All right, let's get going. Thanks so much.
Thanks everybody. If you got to take off,
and to those leaving, we've had a blast. It's been fantastic. Let's dive into some questions here. Jennifer is saying, how do you teach these concepts or break it down to students if you've never met? So thinking about going into next year and don't have a lot of tech experience. I'm going to say, like, the one thing I'm going to push on here is that community building is one of the biggest points that John and I always talk about. We have an episode on the podcast where we talk about essentially, you know, getting back to school and kind of starting the school year off right is what the episode's called. And in there, we talk about how community building is so important. So the task we did today with you, we know you're an educator. We know that you were going to be able, we would meet you where you were with the math. We know it was too fast or there's too much there, but we only have an hour with you. With your students, you have this school year to work with. So when you start next year, especially if it is a blended model or an online model, one of the biggest things is to make sure that those first week activities are, they can be mathematical. Don't get me wrong, but we want to make sure that we're not picking tasks that are going to sort of shut the door on some students. We need to really, really be cognizant of it. And we have to make sure that we spend a lot of time building student voice. And I hope you saw that in what we did today. We spent a lot of time at that notice and wonder stage, because that right there, without that and without building that community, it's hard to get the other pieces to fit in later. So that's what I'll say on that anyway to get started. John, what do you think?
I want to add just like, if you think about the progression of our lesson, you know, we started with low floor, high ceiling in this particular lesson. If you think about how low floor we started with was just, what do you notice? What do you wonder? We went into estimates, and then we had some adding into multiplying, and then it finally ended with some algebraic representations. Like, we had a low floor and a very high ceiling. We want that in our lessons, but we also can do that same approach in a course or a year. So if you think about how low we started with, think about your first week or first few days, especially if we're going to be online come September. I would say you want that to be as low floor as you can, because if you go too fast, too high, too fast, I have a feeling we're going to shut off kids immediately in September, especially if we're online. So keep it low floor as long as you can, and slowly turn that math dial, as Dan Meyer would say, turn the math dial up as you go. Don't crank it up to the top of math time until you're more comfortable with the kids, and the kids are more comfortable with you. So that's, again, like what Kyle says, that's those are some tips that we recommend, regardless if we're online, regardless if we're with our students.
Yeah, great job there, John, adding that on. I'm going to hit 2 knowledge hook questions in one. The first one was are these saved inside when I use snapshots? And the answer is yes. Like, when I end this session, you'll see in the top right of my screen, I'm going to end session. You'll see that I have all my past sessions here. You can even rename them. I can go back to session 9. I can rename this and call this like OTF webinar part 2, because it was the second one I did. I can come back here and do the same thing with session 8 and save those things. So these are all saved. And then the second question about knowledge hook that came up, some people were saying, well, what about like students that don't have phones? We said to use your phone. What I should have said was, if you have a separate device, it's easy just to not have to open a new tab, but I could do the same process with my Chromebook or my laptop or whatever device I'm using. It could be the same device that I'm logged on. The only difference is they might have to go to a new tab. So for example, they would have to go to a new tab and come back to your interactive webinar chat. So those are 2 questions from Knowledge Hook.
There is one,
I guess, a third. Yeah, go ahead, John.
There's a third one here that is asking about the features of Knowledge Hook, about free versus paid. Anything we showed you here today is on the free version. So if you're looking at a particular feature like snapshots, or we didn't show you anything about missions, but they're all free inside your free account at Knowledge Hook.
Yeah, lots of great free tools in Knowledge Hook. So definitely grab that. Something else with tech, while we're speaking about the tech, someone was saying, like, our board doesn't allow us to use Zoom. Could we do the same with another platform? And they're using the example of Google Meet. My board uses Microsoft Teams, and the answer is yes.
Sure.
You can do, really the only thing we did here was screen share. That's the only thing that really Zoom needed to have. All of them have screen share and chat, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and I've done this with Google Meet, so that's where we also don't use Zoom.
Yeah, there you go. So John and I use it because that's what we've always used, but definitely possible.
Susie is wondering whether this is geared for upper elementary or younger primary grades, and I think this, I guess I'm curious about, Susie, is it this task, this software, or this website? I would say we've presented here a number of different ideas that have been used from kindergarten through to grade 12. The ideas behind, like the framework, for sure is used all over the place. The tools for sure can be used with any of those grades. Knowledge Hook actually has pre-built stuff for grade 3 and up to grade 10. So yeah, the task itself, you saw that some people were adding for their solutions. If that's where your students are, you can stop that task right there. Some students were multiplying. You could see that you could show now the progression between adding and multiplying. And then, I've used this task with my high school students in grades 10, just while this last couple of months while we were during this pandemic, this exact task asynchronously and synchronously with my students. So yeah, we got into the solving equations and the systems of equations, which we didn't show the system side of that task. It was a 6-day progression of a task. So yeah, I would say yes, they're all the things we shared here today is for upper elementary and younger primary grades.
And I think with tech, like you have to obviously, think about your audience. For a kindergarten learner, we can't have them, probably uploading solutions like we did here. So you might have to get creative in how you do some of those pieces, but it's always possible. So definitely give that a shot. I'm going to address, Francis says, how come we're doing feet and not in meters? And I always like to be a little bit, a little bit smart with my response. I always say, well, why not? And feet are actually a non-standard measure for the metric system, if you really want to think about it that way. And we don't want to shy away from using them. We're not saying we're going to assess students about feet or about the imperial system in younger grades, but it does come up in the curriculum in high school. So that is something we don't want kids to only learn about, this thing called feet and yards even. We would want to make sure that they're clear on what a foot is. If I'm doing this with a grade 5 class, let's say, we want to make sure that everyone's clear on that unit of measure, and we can just talk about it as if it's a non-standard measure.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add, we teach so much about the metric system, and which is great because it teaches. I love, obviously we love it because of the base 10 connection, but sometimes I think we get blinded that there's other measurement systems that we just completely ignore. Be like, we're Canadian, we're going to teach about the metric system, but almost like in anything in elementary school, we shy away from feet because it's like, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it doesn't exist. And I think bringing some tasks in, especially if the focus is not conversions between the metric system between meters and kilometers or centimeters, why not do some of the connections, or sorry, some of the calculations in a different system. That actually doesn't really matter in this particular problem that we did if it was in feet or meters. That was not the learning goal of the task.
Which interestingly enough too, John, like we never get anyone ever asked like why did we measure in sticks and not in meters? Right. So it's same kind of idea, but definitely it's something for us to think about and reflect on. Two things I'm going to hit here. First one, Colleen says, what about security with Knowledge Hook? Knowledge Hook actually only asks students for their first name and their last initial. So you are good to go. They don't have to have an email address or anything like that. Parents are able to attach their own parent email to be in connection. I think that's a premium feature, but definitely explore that further. So that's one. And then another one was Jean-Claude saying, like, what about in grade 11 and 12, where we have a lot of curriculum to, he's using the word cover, but like John and I would always say, we're not covering that curriculum. We learned from Alex Overwick up in Ottawa. We are uncovering the curriculum. So while this is true, there's a lot going on in that course, in those courses. What I would say is starting with a good question is always key. And then using that question to help you consolidate that learning versus the other way around. So we're not going to pre-teach everything. We're going to try to pick a task that's going to help us uncover the need for the math in grade 11 and 12. And it could look very different than what we just did. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone throwing something. It might be something different. It might be something more abstract, but still curious and following the curiosity path.
Yeah, I'll just add that in my grade 11 and 12 classes that I teach, the curiosity path looks more like what you said, Kyle, about generating a need to say, learn this strategy of solving this problem. It doesn't often involve a real world scenario. It doesn't have to involve involve a real world scenario, but putting our students in a situation where they're attempting to solve problems on their own first, and bringing out strategies and solutions to talk about and connect together. That's the fueling the sense making here that we want to push. And that definitely happens in our grade 11 and 12 classrooms. The sparking curiosity in those classes too can be posing a unique problem that is, we're not sure how to solve it, and doesn't have to be that real world. So want to make that clear, that it looks very different as you go up the grades, but still following that same path.
Right. Awesome. I'm going to hit a couple more here, and then I think we're going to get close to wrapping things up to be respectful of everyone's time. Yeah. There's Stephanie was asking about like suggestions for this type of task, but in French. I would say like going, and most of the important, I guess the important pieces can easily be translated. So while we ran it from the website this time, you could grab this image, and I understand that there's a couple words that are in English. I personally feel like even if I'm running a French program, I can make some of those modifications, even if it's, maybe it doesn't look amazing. I could have like put a text box over top, right? Or blank it out and put, the actual French language. Like I wouldn't allow the language to hold me back from some of the tasks that are out there in English, for example. So hopefully that's helpful there. And then also talking about anonymous attendee. I love that name. It's a beautiful name. Anonymous attendee says, how would you assist students who are not as comfortable in their math abilities? And I'm feeling like rather than diving deep into this piece, I kind of want to go back to the first question, which was about that building community. Yeah. And if we're selecting tasks that are low floor and high ceiling, and we build that community that we're all math learners and we're not judging, we're taking student work and we're trying to elicit thinking. So I want to make sure that that student that you're envisioning in your head that maybe doesn't feel as comfortable in math, I need to find ways to find their good thinking. Everyone has good mathematical thinking. How can I leverage it, and how can I elicit it for my consolidation? Maybe not every day, but we need kids to realize that we are watching what they're doing and that we respect the thinking that they're putting into their work at different levels along that trajectory. So hopefully that gives you some ideas or things to reflect on as we head into summer here.
All right. I think, Lindy, that's going to wrap us up, I think, for the Q&A session, just so that we can get on, keep everybody, on time with things that they got to go and do. So
awesome. You did
thanks
awesome
so much.
job. Thank you both so much. And thanks to everybody who hung around and listened to all those Q&As. I found it fascinating. Really an awesome session, both of you, and can't wait to see what happens next in your math journeys. It's really quite impressive. Thanks, everybody, and have a great evening.
Thanks,
awesome.
everybody.
Thanks for having us, Lindy. Take care, everybody. Have an awesome summer. If we don't see some of you before the end of the school year, take care.
Bye-bye.